Well, hello again, my fellow diecast loving brothers and sisters. How's it going today? All right, this is kind of a special one because this is a car subject that is, wow, very near and dear to me. I've had this in my collection for a while. I've been running the channel for a while and have not featured it. And I said to myself, you know what? It's time to get that one out. You've already seen the big Mark IV that's behind it. And now I'm going to show you the Mark V, 1978 Lincoln Continental Mark V by Model Car Group in 1/18 scale. I got to tell you something. Getting a Mark IV in 1/18 scale was, a pretty thrilling moment of itself. But getting a Mark V that was actually a little better quality, despite its lower price point, that was even better. So I want to go over some noteworthy things about both the model and also the real car. All right. So let's dive into this, shall we? So Model Car Group, they make several versions of this Mark V. And some of them are actually designer series cars, if you can believe it. They did a Blass, a Givenchy. They also did a Diamond Jubilee. Now, they recently came out with another Diamond Jubilee. The first one they did was in the Jubilee Gold. Now they've done a Diamond Blue version, okay? And the Diamond Blue version is even better than the Jubilee Gold version because they did a couple of details that they didn't do on the Gold version. One of which is the Gold one was supposed to have gold-toned teeth in the grille. They didn't do that. The blue one has blue-toned teeth in the grille. It has that accounted for. They did the wheels correctly. They did a lot of things correct except for one thing, and that is the interior. Now, I'm going to put that aspect ratio back on that zoom again. I want you to take a look at the interior that this car has got, right? See the style? That's the sew pattern it has with those little big buttons in there and the kind of the floating cushion. Okay, so that's the interior that they put in the Diamond Jubilee, but just in Diamond Blue, okay? And that's an incorrect interior, okay? I'm going to show you why. This is what the interior of a Diamond Blue Diamond Jubilee is supposed to look like. It has these seats that have this kind of quilted pattern where it almost looks like individual little, almost like biscuits. And also the most noteworthy thing is a console. This console has wood tone right here. This is a lockable storage compartment. The top of the console is made of leather. And also notice that there's a very ornate door panel with a wood trim piece up here. So even the door panel is special and different. The Model Car Group model does not reflect that. It has just the standard door panel, which as you can clearly see, this car has, okay? Now, despite them doing the interior incorrectly on the special editions, Model Car Group does a vastly better job than Best of Show does, okay? One of the most noteworthy things I'm going to show you is this glass. You hear that? It's solid. That's solid, okay? Listen to this on the body. It's made of metal. It's not made of resin plastic like the Best of Show car is. Let me flip it over. Okay? It's not super detailed, but you know what? At least you're not getting a blank plastic slab like you do on the Best of Show, okay? You can see that those cross members, those little cross braces under there, they're accounted for. That is exactly what the lower control arm should look like. That's exactly what the exhaust looked like when you did not have the dual exhaust. Okay. I want you to look at some of these other great details in this car. So the Mark V was designed by the team of Don De La Rosa and Jean Bourdonnais. Okay, and they did a fantastic job. And what they did was this car is every inch a Mark series. It is recognizable instantly as a Mark series. What they did was they took what was right about the Mark IV and they kept it, and they improved what was kind of wrong about the Mark IV and just completely changed it. And one of the things about the Mark IV that was a shortcoming was the kind of Rococo bulbous fenders and such. This has a much smoother razor edge look to it. They really gave the fender wells a chiseled look. The fenders, everything has this just razor sharp, very crisp look to it. The other thing they did was, if you remember on the Mark IV, the bumpers have this very significant protrusion on the sides, plus they're also massive, okay? When they did the Mark V, you'll notice they put some effort into this. It still met the bumper standards, but it did it with a much more slender bumper. It tucked closer to the body, much nicer, without that excessive protrusion. And it just overall looked better. Okay? They did the same thing in the front. And they also did a redesign with the hood. See, in the Mark IV, this part of the hood drips down to the headlamp doors, and only this section here is behind the grille. They decided to do a full pancake style hood, which is, as I told you before, is more expensive to produce. Okay. Also, you'll notice how they did a good job of extra protecting the grille. See, the bumper has a lot of travel before it touches the grille, so in low speed parking lot boo-boos, you won't damage your grille. They did a good job with that. Okay. They also did something very distinctive with the parking lamps. You'll notice the parking lamps on the Mark IV, they look just like the ones you'd see on the Thunderbird and the Elite. Well, they felt that was too common, so they redesigned the little parking lamps, and they made them where they're bladed, and you notice that little Lincoln star in there. That is authentic. They also gave it a very distinctive cornering lamp combined with a side marker lamp. That was also a nice touch. Okay, 1977 is when they introduced these beautiful turbine spoke wheels, and these were pretty much a very popular option. If you lived in California, you got those wheels standard, because why? You could not get the 460 V8 in 1977 and 78. By 1979, all of the Mark Vs had the 400 only. Okay, but in 77, 78, the 400 was a standard engine. You could get the 460 as an option. So because in California that wasn't available, your consolation prize was every Mark V, regardless of how plain or fancy it was, it got these turbine spoke wheels. Also, I want you to look at the fender louvers. Okay, the fender louvers were Don De La Rosa's idea, and they are fully functional in the real car. They allow for the escape of engine heat. Instrument panel is basically the same as in the Mark IV, but they did do some revisements to the wood tone trim, wood tone style, and also the instruments changed style too. And it took on a much more European upscale look about it. Very nicely done. They retained the flush mounted door handles as had been seen on the Mark IV. And of course, no Mark would be complete without the oval opera window. Most of the Mark Vs were equipped with the landau top. There were a few done with a full top, but the landau top was the most popular. And there were many luxury group versions. The luxury group cars tended to have the same sew pattern that you see in this. See, this was the optional interior. Excuse me. The standard interior was just kind of like a basic pleated leather, very understated, but still very nice. And another nice feature about this particular model is you'll notice this. This one's depicted with the extra little power vent window. When you would actuate the window switch, the vent window would drop first, and then if you wanted to stop there, you could, and if you wanted to keep going, you'd press the switch again, and then the main glass would go down. Now these windows, unlike in the Mark IV, which would actually retract at least a little bit, these were fixed. They did not retract. Okay. You got the beautiful Continental Star. It says Continental right there on the headlamp door. Also, another advantage Mark V had over the Mark IV. This entire nose was constructed of fiberglass. This car weighed a full, despite the fact that it was longer, if you can believe that, and I'll show you how they made it longer. Despite the fact it was longer, this car weighed about 450 pounds less than the Mark IV. Now I get it, it's a 5,000 pound car, 450 pounds isn't much, but let me tell you something, it was significant that they were able to shave that much weight, okay? And they just, this car was pretty much an instant classic. Let me give you this idea here, okay? So in 1977 through 1979, they only made the Mark V for 3 years. And yet they sold 280,000, give or take. In the 6 model years that the Mark IV was built, they only sold about 250,000. And the top year was 1973. They sold almost 70,000 that year. Okay, so that shows you right there just how much more popular the Mark V was over the Mark IV. Okay, it was still under the skin, in essence, the same car. Okay, now here's where the extra length came in. So Lincoln was not going to go quietly into the downsizing realm. So this front overhang grew and the rear overhang grew. That's where the extra length came in. Wheelbase stayed the same at roughly 121 inches. I think the actual measurement was like 120.5. I think that's what it actually measured out at. So it had a very long wheelbase. And the other interesting thing I'll tell you is that, believe it or not, the Mark V was built on a modified version of Ford's intermediate chassis. And how you know that is if you look at the rear suspension. The rear suspension on a full-size Continental had a track arm style suspension. This car had the 4-link like the intermediate cars did. So in this year's you would have had what, the Thunderbird, the Cougar XR7, the LTD Series 2. They all ran the intermediate chassis. So Ford modified it, that same chassis, lengthened it, beefed it up, and they were able to fit the slightly wider Lincoln body on that chassis with no problem and with no ill effects as far as handling and structural integrity went. In fact, despite its massive size, the Mark V was a slightly more agile car. Here's another noteworthy change they made. So one of the big problems with the Mark IV was its very low roofline. Okay, there was a TV show called Cannon that was on in the 70s, and it starred William Conrad. You know, he was a fairly portly guy, right? And sometimes the script would call for him to hustle into the car. Well, he bonked his balding head many times on that low roofline on that Mark IV, and because of that reason, he actually grew to hate that car. Okay, and so, you know, Lincoln was not, although that was one of the more noteworthy complaints because it was from a famous person, Lincoln was aware that roofline was very low. And you've got Simeon Bunky Knudsen to thank for that. Bunky was famous for making low roof lines with high belt lines and prominent noses on cars. He was responsible for approving the design of the Mark IV. He also was responsible for approving the 1971 and 72 LTD. He also did the 1970 Thunderbird. If you think back on those cars and their styling, all of them had a prominent schnoz and a very low roof line and a very high belt line. So Lincoln sought to improve the headroom in the Mark V by raising the roof just a little bit. It's very subtle, but you can clearly see there's a big difference between how high the roof is on the 4 versus the 5. That was a much welcome improvement that they did. I mean, let's just be honest. The 5, they're both good-looking cars. They're both handsome. They're both classics in their own right. But the Mark V is just a little bit better because of all the improvements and things, and the styling just really, really works. So you got Gene Bourdonnais and Don De La Rosa to thank for that, both of whom I think have both passed on into the great beyond. So we'll miss them and their influence on the automotive world. So yes, this is just one of the most spectacular 1/18 scale models I have. There is some kind of script in this opera window. I cannot read it, but I assure you that it is highly incorrect. There was no designer series cars done in this color scheme. I believe this color is called Dark Cordovan Red. And there was a Dark Cordovan luxury group car. So this may be a luxury group car, but it's definitely not a special edition. It's not a designer series, from Bill Blass, Givenchy, Emilio Pucci, or who was the other one? Cartier. That's right. He was the jeweler. But it possibly could be a luxury group car. But yeah, Model Car Group, despite their lower price point, they do a better job, a much more quality job than Best of Show does. I'm sorry, Best of Show, you just, you fail. That's some fingerprints on the back here. But that's a beautiful job. I mean, everything, the paint, the details, the proportions, everything about it is just phenomenal. And on this one, I like how they did it's got the antenna button. See, the antenna retracts into that little button there, just like on the Mark IV over there. They just did a really nice job. Here's another thing, too. Look at this. So they made the defroster vents, the cavity dark inside. See, on the Best of Show car, they didn't do that. They just kind of left them plain. if you look right there. Yeah. So yeah, both the model itself and the car itself was superior to the Mark IV. There you have it, my diecast fans. I am really happy to show you this one. This is one of my most personal favorites. I know it's a personal favorite of many of you. You've actually commented several times on my Mark V video I did a while back when I was showing you the small ones, and now it's a real treat to show you the big one. I would love to get another one of these, but I don't want to spend money on one of the designer series ones or special edition anniversary one, because like I said, they don't have the correct interior in there, and that really kind of irritates me that they did that. It's like, I know you guys have the ability to make a different interior. Why not give the special editions the proper interior that they're supposed to have? You know, that's all I'm saying. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I love showing these off to you. It always makes my day. And hopefully I'll be getting some more in the future here, when time permits. All right. In the meantime, take it easy. Take care of each other. God bless. We'll see you in the next video.